Hello and welcome to another World of Warcraft Cataclysm beta video. Today we're going to go over the new Mage abilities and talents. I'm going to start with Arcane Spec. And the reason I want to start with Arcane Spec is because one of the most unexpected changes is here. With Arcane Missiles, it's no longer a spell that you just cast whenever you want. Instead, it's activated by casting other spells, but it costs no mana. So with my Arcane Spec, I'm going to demonstrate that to show you what I mean. I'm going to open with an Arcane Barrage. Now that just activated Arcane Missiles. So I can freeze this guy, come back, and missile him. Now it's not a 100% chance, I'm just getting lucky with my procs. It's actually a 40% chance, and it works with any spell. I just hit it with a Fire Blast, it didn't proc it, but I just hit it with a Frost Bolt and it did. Let's see if I can get that demonstration for you. Okay, so I just Fire Blasted him and I got Arcane Missiles activated. So let's finish this guy off. Moving on to the Arcane Talent tree. Not a whole lot has changed in Arcane. It's actually probably been changed the least, the talent tree that is. There's two talents I want to point out. The first one is Nether Vortex. It causes your Arcane Blast to automatically apply slow to the target. This is pretty nice. It's really nice to save you a global cooldown, and it's great for even for PvP, although I'm not sure how much you would use Arcane Blast in PvP. But the next one is Improved Polymorph. When a target you've polymorphed is damaged, it stuns the target. So I have Spectred Net so I can show you how that looks. So I'm not going to put a dot on him, I'm going to put a Frost Bolt on him. And where's my polymorph? There it is. So I'm going to poly this guy, and he's going to turn into a sheep, and then I'm going to hit him with a Fireball. Improved Polymorph Stun. It's only a 3-second stun, but it's still pretty substantial, since as an Arcane Mage you can also spec in the Fire Blast stun with Impact, which is essentially unchanged from Wrath of the Lich King. Yeah, Arcane's pretty nice. I actually kind of like it. I would probably grind as Arcane, from what I've seen from doing these tests. Moving on to Frost, I want to show the new talent, or the new ability rather, Curtains of Frost. It's on a 1-minute cooldown. It drops a nice little AoE here, and the enemy will run through it and get frozen, or get slowed rather. So I'm going to drop this in the area, cast an Ice Lance, and watch him walk into it, and there you see his movement speed gets reduced. He also takes damage when he walks into it too. This is great for grinding, if you're doing AoE grinding. I mean, that's a given, but it's also really nice for PvP. There's probably about 1 million other applications for that ability. It is very powerful, to be honest. Now for talents, Shatter has been changed slightly. It still does the same thing, except instead of having a set percentage, it just multiplies your critical strike. So this scales with gear. I think it's a very cool option. Cone of Cold, I haven't taken this talent just for demonstration purposes, but it's pretty simple. It causes your Cone of Cold to freeze just like Frost Nova, essentially giving you a second Frost Nova. So that's very nice there. Permafrost now has a Mortal Strike component to it, 25%. Early Frost causes your Frost Bolt to land, your first Frost Bolt to cast faster. It only has a 15-second cooldown. I'll show you. If you watch this first Frost Bolt, it's going to cast super fast compared to the second one, which obviously casts much slower. Alright, enough out of you there. Next talent, Improved Freeze, gives your water elementals freeze a 100% chance to grant 2 charges of Fingers of Frost. So this is just a little bit of synergy with your water elemental. Brain Freeze, this is an interesting effect, and there's something similar to that in Fire, which I'll get to. What it does now is, in addition to its previous effects, it now replaces your Arcane Missiles. So remember I showed you how Arcane Missiles is activated with damage? Now if you have Brain Freeze, that stops working. So essentially it turns off your Arcane Missiles entirely. Now you can choose to not get Brain Freeze and still use Arcane Missiles with your Frost build. I'm not sure how good that will be. Maybe if you go, improved Arcane Missiles and skip Brain Freeze, but that is going to be some advanced strategies. I would love to see some number crunching when the game goes live. It really can't do that now, because in beta none of these balanced numbers are finalized at all. I mean, they just had a patch where they just upped and down everything by like 5 and 10%, so who knows what it's going to be like even in just a couple months. But anyway, Brain Freeze still has its old functionality that gives you the instant cast Fireball, so it's a lot like Hot Streak. Alright, the other thing that is new here, there's two other new ones actually. Reactive Barrier, it causes your Ice Barrier to auto-cast if you get knocked below 50% health. This is more of a crutch than anything else. I would not probably take this because it's something that, with a little discipline, you should be able to do yourself. It does save you the mana cost, and it's, you know, Ice Barrier is a little bit on the costly side, but I can't see this being too much of a lifesaver since you can just cast it anyway. And it doesn't, if it ignored the cooldown maybe, that would be really cool, or if it reset the cooldown, but it doesn't do that, unfortunately. It says, this effect obeys Ice Barrier's cooldown. The last one is much more interesting, Frostfire Orb. Now you're like, what is Frostfire Orb? What it does is it turns your Flame Orb ability into something different. Now you see this is Flame Orb ability is another new ability. I want to show you real quick. Flame Orb launches a Flame Orb towards the mage's position, forward from, rather, the mage's position, dealing damage. It just targets something and shoots fire at it, right? Well, when you buy this talent, Frostfire Orb, it changes it into a different kind of thing. In addition to the damage, it also slows, okay? It actually changes the ability. Now, it doesn't reflect it on the tooltip, but you can see when it comes out, it looks like an Ice Orb. Now, here's the orb in action. It just sits there and shoots at a target. It's kind of like a fire and forget weapon. I'm going to freeze him so that he can't get away from it. The orb does continue moving, but you don't have to control it or do anything. It's just free damage. And it only costs about 900 mana, so that's pretty nice. Let's finish that guy off. As you see, it did quite a bit of damage. It attacks very fast, so this is a good spell. And when I switch to fire, I'll show you regular Flame Orb as well. So that does it for Ice, it looks like. That's all that's really changed. As you can see, like Arcane, not many changes. Now I'm going to go ahead and switch to Fire as promised. This is where most of the changes are. So there's some really, really interesting things going on. Alright, I'm out of mana, so let's get Evocation going. The first thing I'm going to show you, Burnout, or Burning Soul, Burning Soul actually works for all spells, not just fire spells now. That's nice. Alright. Impact now has an additional ability to it. In addition to being the Fire Blast stun like normal, it also causes let me just read this tooltip to you. Spread any fire damage over time effects to nearby enemy targets. So in other words, if there's one guy who has a whole bunch of fire dots on him and two of his buddies come, you can hit him with an impact Fire Blast, and it will spread all those fire dots over to his buddies. So this is a little difficult to use. It's really hard to plan that, but if you have the opportunity, it does add a lot of damage for basically free. So this is a really nice ability. It works in conjunction with the new combustion, which I will get to in a minute. Blast Wave has been changed. It no longer radiates straight out from the mage. Instead, you have to target an area. Otherwise, it's the same, but there is a talent that buffs it, which I'll get to also in just a minute. Now here's one talent I really want to show because it's really important. Improve Scorch. Reduces the mana cost of Scorch by 100%. Alright, so this gives you free Scorches. This is really, really, really crazy. And it does work, and I'll show you in a second, but I want to also show you this talent, Firestarter. Your Molten Armor allows you to cast the Scorch spell while moving instead of reducing the chance you're critically hit. So this takes away the normal secondary effect of Molten Armor. It still crits, it still gives you the extra crit, but it takes away that PvP bonus, reducing the chance to critically hit, and replaces it with allowing you to cast Scorch while moving. Permanently, by the way. So let me get buffed up here. Make sure I have my Molten Armor on, and I'm going to just... I put a Living Bomb on him so he'll die a little faster. Now I'm running away from him and strafing and jumping. As long as you keep him in front, that's the only thing you have to worry about. You can just keep running and keep scorching, and it will not interrupt it. Jumping doesn't even interrupt it. You have to, and if you want to interrupt, you have to hit escape, by the way. And it doesn't cost any mana. My mana is just regenerating freely the whole time. So that is a very, very useful thing. Obviously grinding, I mean, that's a no-brainer. PvP too is a no-brainer. I mean, you can use it in raiding. This is such a great talent. I can't imagine ever skipping this talent. This talent is amazing. So, Improve Scorch, Firestarter, 3 of the best talent points you can spend in this tree. Well, I'm going to move on to Cauterize, which is a defensive talent primarily for PvP. If you get killed, like a rogue with Cheat Death, instead of dying, you gain a little bit of health back, but the difference is that that health will burn off, so you gain the 40% health, but then it drains from you and you die. You have 6 seconds before you die. Now you can get healed and get saved, or the enemy can simply kill you all over again, but this is still really nice for PvP. I can see this being very, very effective in PvP. Combustion has been changed and no longer has the same effect at all. It's a completely different spell. Now, what it does is it takes all your damage over time effects and then turns them into one single effect and then allows you to reapply those effects, essentially giving you double dot damage on one target. I can see this being really effective for rotations, especially on bosses or large raid mobs in the last 20%. So if you're wondering what the heck I'm talking about here, let me just demonstrate combustion. I'm going to open, I'm just going to put just a couple dots. I'm just going to put Pyroblast and Living Bomb. So you see I got the Living Bomb and the Pyroblast dot. Now I'm going to hit combustion and combine them into one. And now I can put Living Bomb on there again, and I can put Pyroblast on there again. Well, I got a nice crit. You didn't get to see the Pyroblast because he died too fast, but you get my point. The only downside to combustion is it is a 2-minute cooldown, so you have to be careful about when you use it. Now moving on to Hot Streak, this still has the same functionality that you're used to in that it makes your pyros instant when you're attacking. But there's something that's been changed. First of all, when you have Hot Streak, instead of just automatically triggering after 2 or 3 or whatever it was, crits in a row, now it's just a percentage chance to take effect. So it doesn't always happen. It's sort of like a random thing. But if you go down a tier more, you get improved Hot Streak, which is the old functionality, and it makes it automatically trigger after 2. So if you hit 1 crit in a row, you have a chance of getting Hot Streak, but if you hit 2 crits in a row, you're guaranteed to get it. I'm not exactly sure what the percentage is on Hot Streak. I haven't found it listed, but I'm sure it's somewhere. I'm sure somebody has it somewhere, but it is definitely very high. I can tell you that from testing, and I will show you in just a second. But the other thing you notice here, the first line, your spells no longer trigger arcane missiles, just like Brain Freeze. So Hot Streak and Brain Freeze are similar in that regard, that they could disable your arcane missiles entirely. So as a Fire Mage with an improved Hot Streak, you are not going to be able to use arcane missiles at all, even if you wanted to. So what I'm going to do is attempt, if I get lucky, and demonstrate, okay, that was perfect. I just got a crit with Fireball. I did not proc Hot Streak. So that shows that it is a percentage. And I got it on the first try. So let's go Scorch Happy here until I get a crit. There's a crit, no Hot Streak. There's my Hot Streak, because I got the 2 crits in a row. So yeah, Hot Streak still works, it just works just slightly differently, but I wanted to point that out because the Arcane Missile change is pretty significant and can be confusing if you're just reading about it. Alright, moving on from those. Improved Flame Strike. Now, you remember the old Improved Flame Strike, which causes your Blast Wave to make your next Flame Strike instant? Well, now your Flame Strike is instant all the time. It's like an AoE Moonfire. But it also causes your Blast Wave to automatically cast Flame Strike if you hit more than one target. So if I'm AoE grinding, or even if I'm just fighting 2, you only have to actually be fighting 2 to get this effect. Where's 3 mobs? Okay, I'm actually gonna grab 3 mobs, and I'm gonna also show you at the same time, Pyromaniac increases spell haste if 3 or more targets are taking fire damage. So pretty simple stuff. So let's go ahead and pull here. Okay. And I just dropped a Blast Wave, and it auto-casted Flame Strike. And now I have Pyromaniac. Moving on to Critical Mass. Your Living Bomb and Flame Orb deal more damage, and your Pyroblast and Scorch spells cause your target to be vulnerable to spell damage, increasing spell critical strike chance against the target by 5%. That's a very long-winded way to say that this is the old version of Improved Scorch. You remember what Improved Scorch used to do? Now it works for Scorch and Pyroblast, and it's rolled into the Critical Mass talent, which is one that you're always going to be taking because it gives you 15% more damage on your Living Bomb, and Living Bomb is awesome, so you're always going to be taking that talent. Alright, now I do want to demonstrate finally the regular Flame Orb. It's really exactly the same as the Frostfire Orb I showed you earlier, except that it doesn't slow. That's the only difference. So let's freeze this guy in place so you can watch it just burn him. Nothing too crazy, but considering how cheap the spell is, and that it's essentially free damage, fire and forget, then it's actually very welcome. It's a very welcome addition to the Mage's arsenal. Alright, well that does it for fire. Now I've shown you each tree, but there's still one more ability I want to show you. I want to save the best for last. We are going to check out Time Warp. Now, warp the flow of time, increasing speed by 30%. Yes, this is Bloodlust. So mages now have Bloodlust. It has the same cooldown as Bloodlust and the same debuff as Bloodlust. So I'm going to cast it, and you can see that temporal displacement, blah blah blah, cannot benefit from Bloodlust, Heroism, or Time Warp for 10 minutes. Alright, that does it for the Mage. Those are all the new abilities and spells found in Cataclysm as of the current beta build. So thanks for watching.